And let's keep the applause going for our next storyteller, whose name is Kevin Carlin. Kevin Carlin, come on up. How you doing? Killed it. All right, first time?
No, sir.
Huh?
No, sir.
Oh, good.
South of Buffalo, New York, there is a ravine that's called Zor Valley. And if you park and hike a mile up the creek, there's a 20-foot waterfall that you can jump off of. It is amazing. And as you can imagine, a lot of people find that jumping off a waterfall is a little too boring and mundane unless they involve alcohol. And so, not surprisingly, each summer there are an unfortunate number of injuries, including the occasional death. And the last time I was there with my friend Justin, we had jumped the falls, we were walking back to the car, and around the first bend, we came across a drunk college kid who had tried to climb up the ravine. And it's just loose shale, so of course he fell and hit the back of his head. And by the grace of God, Justin and I were the second people to come across this kid. Had we been the first people to find him, we almost certainly would have just helplessly watched him expire, because we don't know what we're doing. But by some miracle, the first guy to find this kid was an Army field medic. So he knew exactly what he was doing. So he was in his element. And he had the kid, he had him lying on his back on the rocks with a towel over him. And as we came up, he was telling him, look, you got a scratch on the back of your head. We got to keep you stabilized. We got to keep you warm. You're going to be fine. We're going to get you help. And so we walk up, and the guy's like, we got to keep this kid warm. So we took my towel, and we got it under him to insulate him from the rocks beneath him. And then Justin's towel we rolled up, put behind his head. And then the medic takes me aside, and he goes, this kid has a gigantic gash on the back of his head. And he goes, I got to look at it. What I need you to do is I need you to keep him focused and keep him talking, because the instant he closes his eyes, he's going to die. Never did I think that I would be in a crisis situation where the life or death task I would be given would be to make small talk with a drunk college kid. Didn't think it would happen. I was not prepared for that. I am an absolute introvert. Small talk is not my forte. This kid lives, but you should all of you nevertheless pray that your life never depends on my ability to have a skin-deep conversation. They're long odds. And so I dug deep. I made the only kind of small talk I ever knew how to make, which is very awkward. It was to ask him the sort of questions I would ask a girl I was interested in getting to know better. And I haven't even had to do that in a long time, because I'm married, so I had to dig deep. It was awkward. I was like, so you in school? Where do you go to school? And he's like, UB. And I was like, oh, UB, that's great, man. Are you majoring? What are you studying? And he's like, history. I'm so cold, man. I'm really cold. And all I could think to do was just ignore that. So I was like, oh, history, that's interesting. What do you think you want to do when you graduate? You want to teach? You want to be a teacher? So she's like, oh, I'm just really cold, man. She's like, oh, we should get together, have a history study session sometime. And he's literally starting to do the eyes half closed thing, and I was just in an absolute panic. So it started to deteriorate for me, and I started to just get mad, and it was like a police interrogation at that point. I was just like, I asked you a question, son. Trying anything. And then in the meantime, while this was going on, Justin had been given the task of finding a cell phone signal and calling 911. And I was more than a little envious of that job. I happen to be very good at that. You need a cell phone signal in a ravine, I'm your guy. A cell phone signal in a ravine finding fool. In fact, my ego was a little bruised that I wasn't selected for that. But he got a hold of him, and so they had dispatched a helicopter to airlift the kid out. And in the meantime, while the helicopter was en route, two park rangers hiked up to us with medical supplies, and they kind of took over. And they told us, this is kind of a side note, but they told us when the helicopter lands, it's going to kick up a lot of debris, so you guys have to huddle in a circle and look down. You can't look at it because you might get hit in the eye. So to summarize, helicopter landing in a ravine, don't look at it. Yeah, not happening. Because, they didn't even come straight down like I thought they would, because they didn't know exactly where we were. So by the time we saw the helicopter, they were a few feet above the water, flying up the ravine. I will take a twig in the eye to watch that. That's amazing. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. So the helicopter lands, and they load the kid onto it with my towel still under him. And I came close to having like a George Costanza, Larry David moment. I mean, like, before you guys take off, if I could just grab that back from you real quick. My wife is never gonna believe how I lost the towel. I swear to God, there was this kid, I had to save his life with my towel. But I let it go, it's just a towel, but... So they took off, they got him out of there, and actually, I followed the story on the local news. He was in critical condition for almost 2 weeks, and but in the end, he did end up pulling through, and he was okay. And my role in the whole thing was far from glamorous, but these days, anytime somebody accuses me of being awkward or antisocial, I just smile to myself, because I know that my small talk saves lives. Thanks, guys.